The nurse murmured she just wanted to sleep one night, not noticing the rich patient watching her. Audrey rested her head in her hands and let out a whisper heavy with exhaustion that echoed through the silent hospital room. Her words trembled with the weight of weeks without proper rest, shifts that stretched far beyond what was humanly possible. It was when she murmured those words, never imagining anyone could hear, that Richard Sterling, lying in the bed beside her, felt something stir in his chest. The 52-year-old businessman pretended to keep sleeping, but every syllable of that involuntary confession hit him like a punch to the gut. "I just want to sleep one full night," she repeated, this time even softer, as if speaking to a higher power that might actually hear her pleas. Richard kept his eyes closed, but his heart raced. In the 3 days he'd been admitted to that Manhattan private medical center, he had watched that young nurse work non-stop. She had to be in her mid-20s, dark hair always tied back practically, and a dedication that bordered on impossible. What impressed him most wasn't just Audrey's professional dedication, but the way she treated every patient as if they were the most important person in the world. Even with eyes red from fatigue, she always found a genuine smile to offer. "Nurse Audrey, they need you in room 312, a voice called from the hallway. Richard watched her get up from the chair where she'd sat for only 2 minutes. She smoothed her blue uniform and walked toward the door, but he noticed how slower her steps were, as if every movement cost her an enormous effort. During the early morning hours, Richard woke up thirsty and saw Audrey organizing medications at the counter beside his bed. She moved like an automaton, checking charts with eyes that struggled to stay open. "Sorry if I woke you," he whispered. Audrey turned, a little startled. She hadn't expected him to be awake. "Don't worry, Mr. Sterling. Do you need anything?" "Just water, please." As she poured the water, Richard noticed her trembling hands. It wasn't nervousness, it was pure exhaustion. "How long has it been since you've rested properly?" The question caught Audrey off guard. She hesitated for a moment, then forced a smile. "I'm fine, don't worry. You need to sleep. You have surgery tomorrow." But Richard had already noticed far more than she realized. Over the past few days, he'd observed that Audrey arrived at the hospital before dawn and only left when it got dark. During her breaks, instead of resting, she stayed on the phone, always with a worried voice, talking about medications and appointments. The next morning, while waiting for the preparations for his surgery, Richard overheard a conversation between 2 nurses in the hallway. "Is Audrey covering Brenda's shift again?" "Yeah, 3rd day in a row. She needs the extra dollars because of the boy. That girl is going to end up collapsing. Working 72 hours straight isn't normal." Richard felt a tightness in his chest. 72 hours straight. How was that possible? And what boy were they talking about? When Audrey came to administer the pre-op medication, he tried to strike up a conversation again. "Do you have family, Nurse Audrey?" "I have a son," she replied, and for the first time, Richard saw a different spark in her eyes, a mix of love and worry. "How old is he?" "7. Tyler is a smart boy, you know, even with all the difficulties." She stopped abruptly, as if she'd said more than she should. "Difficulties?" Audrey lowered her eyes and continued preparing the injection. "Respiratory problems, nothing we can't manage with the right treatment." The way she said, "we can't manage," revealed far more than she'd intended. She was a mother fighting alone against a situation that haunted her. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to hit like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. After the surgery, Richard woke up disoriented. The first thing he saw was Audrey checking his vital signs. Even through the haze of the anesthesia, he could tell she looked even more exhausted. "What time is it?" he asked, his voice hoarse. 3 in the morning. How are you feeling?" "Were you here when I went into surgery at 8 yesterday morning?" Audrey avoided answering directly. "What matters is that you're okay. The surgery was a success." In the following days, Richard began to observe her more closely. Audrey truly never left the hospital. During her few breaks, she slept in an uncomfortable chair at the end of the hallway. Several times he saw her wake up startled, checking her watch as if she had missed something important. One afternoon, while she was changing his dressings, Audrey's phone rang. She excused herself to answer it, but Richard could hear fragments of the conversation. "Doctor, I know it's late, but I swear I'll get the money by Friday. Tyler is doing well today, but he needs to stay on the medication. I understand, but please, just a few more days." When she hung up, her hands were visibly trembling. "Problems?" Richard asked gently. "Nothing I can't handle," she replied, but her voice betrayed her insecurity. "Sometimes talking helps. I've got plenty of time here." Audrey looked at him for a long moment. There was something about Richard's calm, sincere manner that invited trust. "It's my son's medication. It's expensive and, well, sometimes it gets hard." "Don't you have insurance?" "I do, but this particular medication isn't covered. It's imported." "And the boy's father?" Audrey's face immediately closed off. "We're not in contact." Richard realized he had touched a deep wound. He decided not to press the matter, but he filed that information away. During the night, he heard Audrey crying softly in the chair in the hallway. It was a muffled cry, the kind from someone used to suffering in silence. Richard got out of bed, ignoring the pain from the surgery, and walked over to her. "Nurse Audrey?" She started and quickly wiped away her tears. "Mr. Sterling, what are you doing up? Get back in bed. I just wanted to check if you're okay." "I am. Just a little tired." "Audrey," he said, using her first name without the formal title for the first time. "I'm not a doctor, but I know how to recognize when someone is at their breaking point." She looked into his eyes, and for a moment, the entire professional facade crumbled. "I can't stop. If I stop, who's going to take care of Tyler?" "But who takes care of you?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked her that in a long time. "I manage. I've always managed." Richard helped her up from the chair. "Come on, let me make us some coffee. You can tell me what's going on if you want." In the small break room on the floor, as Audrey stirred her coffee with still trembling hands, she began to open up. Tyler's father had abandoned her when he found out about the boy's respiratory problems. He left behind huge debts and she had to start from scratch. At first I thought it would be temporary, that he would get better and everything would go back to normal, but it's been 3 years like this. "Is he hospitalized?" "No, thank God. He stays with my neighbor during my shifts. Mrs. Hattie is an angel. She takes care of him like he's her own grandson. But I know it's a lot of weight on her too." "And you work this much because of the medication?" "The medication, the appointments, the physical therapy sessions. It all costs so much. My regular salary doesn't even cover half of it." Richard watched that young woman who sacrificed her own health for her son. There was something in her determination that reminded him of someone very special. "Can I ask you a personal question?" Audrey nodded. "Why did you choose to be a nurse?" A sincere smile appeared on her face for the first time in days. "My mother was a nurse. She always said that caring for people was the most beautiful profession in the world. When she passed away, I wanted to follow in her footsteps. She would be proud of you. Sometimes I have my doubts. She always found time for everything: work, family, leisure. I can barely manage the basics. Maybe because you're facing challenges she never had to face alone." The next day, Richard was discharged from the hospital, but something was deeply bothering him. He couldn't get Audrey out of his head. That night at home, in his luxurious Upper West Side apartment, he felt restless. Richard Sterling had built an empire in the coffee export business. At 52, he was worth a considerable fortune, but he had been living alone ever since his wife left him 5 years earlier. They never had children, and she had always accused him of being married to his work. For the first time in years, Richard questioned the meaning of all that wealth. What was the point of having so much money if he couldn't use it to help someone who truly needed it? The next morning, he went back to the hospital. Officially, it was for a follow-up appointment, but in truth, he wanted to see how Audrey was doing. He found her in the same state, exhausted, but smiling at the patients. When she saw him, she was surprised. "Mr. Sterling, how are you feeling?" "Much better, thanks to your care. You, on the other hand, look even more tired." "It was a rough night. 2 patients needed special care. Audrey, I need to talk to you about something. Do you have a few minutes? She looked around, checking that there was nothing urgent. A few minutes, yes. They went to the same break room where they had talked the night before. I've been thinking about our conversation yesterday, and I'd like to make you a proposal. Audrey looked at him with curiosity mixed with caution. What kind of proposal? I want to pay for Tyler's treatment. Her face changed immediately. Mr. Sterling, I appreciate the intention, but I can't accept that. Why not? Because it wouldn't be right. We barely know each other. Audrey, I have more money than I could spend in several lifetimes, and you have a situation that money can solve. Where's the problem? The problem is that this would be charity, and I don't accept charity. It's not charity. It's one human being helping another. To you, maybe. But to me it would be accepting that I failed as a mother, that I can't take care of my own son. Richard realized he had underestimated Audrey's pride. He needed a different approach. What if it weren't free? What do you mean? What if I hired you to do a job? I need someone to look after my health at home, to monitor my recovery. You would work for me, and as part of your salary, I would cover Tyler's medical costs. Audrey studied him for a long moment. Do you really need home care? Absolutely. The doctor recommended close monitoring for at least a month. It was a half-truth. The doctor had mentioned it as an option, not a necessity. I would have to ask for a leave of absence from the hospital. Temporary. You can come back afterward if you want. And Tyler? I can't leave him with Mrs. Hattie all day. He can come with me. I have a big house with room for both of you. Audrey was silent for several minutes, weighing the proposal. Why are you doing this? What's in it for you? Richard took a deep breath. It was a fair question, and she deserved an honest answer. Because for the last 5 years since my wife left me, I've been living an empty life. I have everything money can buy, but I have no purpose. When I see you sacrificing yourself for your son, I remember what really matters in life. That's not enough reason to spend so much money on strangers. Maybe it's not rational, but it's what I feel I need to do. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, Audrey asked for some time to think. Throughout the rest of the day, Richard noticed she was more distracted than usual. Several times he saw her stop mid-task, lost in thought. At the end of the shift, she came to find him. Mr. Sterling, I spoke with Mrs. Hattie about your proposal. She thinks I should accept. And you? What do you think? I think I'm scared. I've never depended on anyone since Tyler's father left. I'm afraid of getting used to it and then losing everything all over again. I understand your fear, but sometimes we have to take a risk for things to get better. I accept, but with some conditions. Go ahead. First, I need to keep working at the hospital at least 2 days a week. This job is important to me and I don't want to lose that connection completely. No problem. Second, I want a clear contract, specifying all the obligations of both parties. I don't want any misunderstandings. Perfectly reasonable. And third, if at any point you think it's not working, you need to let me know in advance so I can get myself organized. And the same goes for you. If you're not comfortable, you can leave whenever you want. They shook hands to seal the agreement, and Richard felt a strange sensation, as if his life was about to change completely. 2 weeks later, Audrey and Tyler moved into Richard's house in a gated community in Greenwich. The house was truly large, 4 bedrooms, a pool, a spacious yard. Tyler was delighted, especially with the backyard, where he could play without worrying about the city's pollution. The first few days were an adjustment period for everyone. Tyler was a shy boy at first, but he soon warmed up to Richard. The businessman realized he had missed out on a lot by never having had children. Uncle Richard, that's what Tyler had decided to call him. Why do you have such a big house all to yourself? Good question. I guess I never thought about it before. My mom always says a big empty house makes your heart sad. Richard looked at Audrey, who blushed slightly. Your mother is very wise. The routine that established itself was unlike anything Richard had ever experienced. Mornings began with Tyler having breakfast while telling him about his dreams from the night before. Audrey took care of Richard's medications and organized his medical appointments, but she also brought a genuine joy into the house. At the end of the first week, during dinner, Tyler asked an unexpected question. "Uncle Richard, are you lonely?" "Tyler," Audrey scolded, "you can't ask questions like that." "It's okay," said Richard. "That's an honest question. Yes, Tyler, I was very lonely, but ever since you two arrived, I don't feel that way anymore." "That's great. Mom was lonely too before, but now she smiles more." Audrey and Richard looked at each other. It was true. In the past few days, without the constant pressure of the hospital and with Tyler receiving proper treatment, Audrey seemed like a different person. A month later, Tyler's test results showed significant improvement. The pulmonologist was impressed with the progress. "What did you change in the treatment?" asked the doctor. "We just followed your recommendations to the letter, doctor," Audrey replied. "It's more than that. The boy is visibly happier, less stressed. That makes all the difference in treating respiratory issues." On the way back home, Tyler slept in the back seat of the car. Audrey and Richard talked in low voices. "Thank you," she said. "Not just because of the money, but because of everything. Tyler never had a present father figure, and you don't need to thank me. I should be the one thanking you. You two changed my life." "What do you mean?" "Before you two, I woke up every day not knowing why. Now, I wake up thinking about breakfast with Tyler, about your stories from the hospital, about the little projects around the house. Did you never think about having a family?" "I did, but I always thought there was time. I focused so much on work that by the time I realized it was too late." "It's not too late. You're only 52. Sometimes I feel like I've lived alone too long to learn how to live with other people." "Nonsense. Look how Tyler has grown fond of you. And, well, I've gotten used to your company too." There was something in her tone of voice that made Richard look more carefully. Over the past few weeks, he had noticed small gestures. Audrey making his coffee exactly the way he liked it, picking out his clothes when he went out to meetings, genuinely worrying about his well-being. 2 weeks later, Audrey received a phone call that changed everything. It was Mrs. Hattie, her former neighbor. "Audrey, dear, I need to tell you something. Graham showed up here looking for you and Tyler." Audrey turned pale. Graham was Tyler's father, who had disappeared 3 years earlier. "What does he want?" "He said he wants to see the boy, that he's sorry and wants to take responsibility." "After 3 years, now that Tyler is doing well?" "He seemed sincere, you know. He said he got a good job and wants to help with the expenses." When Audrey hung up the phone, her hands were trembling. Richard, who had overheard fragments of the conversation, approached. "Trouble. Tyler's father wants to see him." "And you? Do you want him to see him?" "I don't know. Tyler always asks about his father. Maybe it would be good for him to have that figure back." "But what about you? What do you feel?" "Fear. A lot of fear. What if he wants to take Tyler away? What if Tyler prefers to stay with him?" "Audrey, you're a wonderful mother. Tyler knows that. But a father is different. Tyler never had that." That night, Audrey could barely sleep. Richard heard her pacing around the house, restless. In the morning, she had deep, dark circles under her eyes and seemed to have gone back to the state of exhaustion from her hospital days. "You need to talk to Tyler about this," Richard advised during breakfast. "Talk about what?" asked Tyler, always attentive. Audrey took a deep breath. "Sweetheart, remember how you always ask about your father?" "Yes. You always say he had to travel for work." "That's true, but now he's back and he wants to meet you." Tyler's eyes lit up. "He wants to see me? For real?" "Yes, he does. What do you think?" "I want to meet my father," said Tyler, jumping out of his chair. "When is he coming?" Audrey looked at Richard, who nodded encouragingly. "Tomorrow afternoon. He's coming here." The rest of the day was a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Tyler kept asking questions about his father, and Audrey tried to answer as honestly as possible, without revealing the hurt she still carried. Richard noticed that Audrey was particularly nervous because it was Saturday, the day they usually spent together doing family activities. Over the past 2 months, those moments had become special for all of them. Maybe I should leave when he arrives, Richard suggested, to give you some privacy. No, said Tyler immediately. You're part of our family now. I want my father to meet you. Audrey smiled sadly. Tyler's innocence regarding the complexity of the situation was touching and frightening at the same time. On Sunday afternoon, Graham arrived right on time. He was a man in his early 30s, appearing to be financially well off, driving a new car. Tyler ran to the window when he saw him arrive. That's him, Mum. It's my father. Richard watched Audrey tense up. She looked beautiful, had dressed with care, but her body language revealed her nervousness. When Graham rang the doorbell, it was Tyler who opened the door with Audrey right behind him. Daddy. Graham knelt down to be at his son's eye level. Tyler, how you've grown. You're a big, handsome boy. Mommy always said you were handsome. Now I can see it's true. We look alike. Graham looked at Audrey over Tyler's head. Hi, Aud. You look good. Hi, Graham, please come in. When they entered the living room, Graham noticed Richard and extended his hand. You must be Richard. Aud told me about you. Nice to meet you, Richard replied, shaking his hand firmly. Tyler, how about showing me your room? Audrey suggested. Come on, Dad. You'll see my drawings and my toys. While Tyler led his father on a tour of the house, Audrey and Richard stayed in the living room. He seems different, Audrey said. Different how? More mature, more responsible. When he left, he was immature, always blaming others for his problems. 3 years can change a person, or make them better at pretending. Richard understood her distrust. Graham had abandoned Audrey at the hardest moment. It was only natural that she'd question his intentions now. When they came back, Tyler was beaming. Mommy, Dad said he has a new apartment with a rooftop pool, and that I can visit whenever I want. That's nice, sweetheart. Graham sat down in the armchair and looked around the house. You're doing well here. The house is lovely. Thank you. Tyler told me you work here, Aud. That Richard is recovering from surgery. That's right. And you, Richard? What do you do? Export coffee. Must be a thriving business. There was something in Graham's tone that bothered Richard, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. The conversation moved on to general topics: how Tyler was doing in school, his health, the activities he enjoyed. Graham seemed genuinely interested, asking detailed questions and recalling things Tyler had shared. After 2 hours, Graham stood up to leave. Tyler, how about you come spend next weekend with me? We can go to the park, maybe the mall. Can I, Mummy? Please? Audrey hesitated. Maybe it's too soon. Mummy, please, I want to get to know my dad better. Aud, I understand your concern, Graham said. I know I made mistakes in the past, but I want to make things right. I want to be the father Tyler deserves. And where were you when he spent that night in the hospital with pneumonia? Where were you when I was working 3 shifts straight to pay for his medicine? Audrey's response came out more aggressive than she intended. Tyler looked confused by the sudden tension. I know I can't undo the past, Graham replied calmly, but I can try to build a better future. For him, and for you too. For me. Aud, we were happy once. Maybe we can be again. Like a real family. The silence that followed was awkward. Tyler looked from one adult to the other, trying to understand what was happening. Graham, I think we should talk about this in private, Audrey said. Of course, how about we have lunch together tomorrow? Without Tyler, so we can talk calmly. Audrey glanced quickly at Richard, who kept a neutral expression. Fine. Noon tomorrow. After Graham left, Tyler was ecstatic, but Audrey seemed troubled. Mummy, didn't you like Dad? Of course I did, sweetheart. It's just a lot of feelings all at once. But you looked mad at him. I wasn't mad, Tyler. I was just careful. Later, when Tyler was asleep, Audrey and Richard talked on the balcony. What did you think of him? She asked. Hard to say with just one conversation. He seemed sincere with Tyler. But I noticed he was evaluating much more than he let on. The house, your work here, my financial situation. You think he has ulterior motives? I don't know, but 3 years is a long time for someone to simply wake up and decide to be a father. That's exactly what worries me. Why now? What changed? Maybe he really has changed. Or maybe he found out you guys are doing well and wants a piece of it. Audrey sighed deeply. I don't know what to do, Richard. Tyler was so happy. And that's the point. Tyler deserves to know his father, but you need to protect him too. How do I do that without looking like the villain of the story? By being careful. By finding out Graham's true intentions before making any major decisions. On Monday, Audrey had lunch with Graham at a restaurant downtown. She was nervous, but determined to understand what he really wanted. You look beautiful, Aud, was the first thing he said. Different, more confident. Thank you. That house where you're living, is it Richard's? Yes. Why? Just curious. Are you two together? The question caught Audrey off guard. We're friends. He's my boss. Boss? I thought you worked at the hospital. I do, but I also take care of Richard. He's recovering from surgery. I see. Must be nice earning two salaries. There was something in his tone that bothered her. Graham, why did you come back? After 3 years, why now? He took a deep breath before answering. Because I grew up, Aud. Because I realized I made the biggest mistake of my life when I abandoned you two. The biggest mistake was abandoning Tyler at the moment he needed a father the most. I know, and there isn't a day that goes by that I don't regret it. But back then, I was scared. Tyler was always sick. You were always stressed out. I didn't know how to help. So, you ran away. Running away was cowardly, I admit it, but I'm different now. I have a stable job, I've matured. I'm ready to be the father Tyler deserves. And what job is that? I work at a business consulting firm. The salary is good. I have health insurance. I can help with Tyler's expenses. Audrey studied him for a moment. Graham, what exactly do you want? I want my family back. I want us to be a family again. After 3 years, you think it's that simple? No, I know it's not simple, but I want to try. For Tyler and for us. There is no us anymore, Graham. That ended the day you left. But it could exist again. I saw the way you looked at me yesterday. There's still something between us. Audrey shook her head. What you saw was surprise, and maybe a little nostalgia for the good times we had. But that's not love, Graham. And is there someone special in your life now? Again, the image of Richard came to her mind, but she pushed the thought away. That's not the issue. The issue is Tyler and what's best for him. So you'll let him spend the weekend with me? Audrey hesitated. A few hours, yes. The whole weekend, not yet. We need to take it slow. Okay. How about Saturday afternoon? I can pick him up at 2 and bring him back at 6. Deal. When she got home, Audrey told Richard about the conversation. He seems determined, Richard commented. He really does. And that worries me. Why? Because the Graham I knew was never determined about anything. He always gave up when things got hard. Maybe he really has changed, or maybe he's just learned to fake it better. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, go ahead and leave a like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel. That really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The following Saturday, Graham arrived promptly to pick up Tyler. The boy was excited, had gotten ready with care, and couldn't stop talking about the plans his father had promised. We're going to the amusement park, and then to the mall, and he said we're going to eat pizza. That's nice, son. Have fun. After they left, the house became strangely silent. It was the first time in 2 months that Audrey and Richard had been alone for so long. It feels strange without Tyler here, commented Richard. It does. I've gotten used to his mess and noise. They spent the afternoon watching a movie, but Audrey was distracted, constantly glancing at her watch. Worried? Asked Richard. A little. It's the first time Tyler has gone out alone with his father since, well, ever really. He'll be fine. Graham may have his flaws, but he seems genuinely interested in Tyler. That's what confuses me. He really does seem interested, but there's something, I don't know, something that doesn't quite convince me. At 6:30, Graham still hadn't brought Tyler back. Audrey was growing anxious. "Maybe they're stuck in traffic," suggested Richard. "Or maybe he decided not to bring him back." "Audrey, you're being paranoid." "I'm a mother. It's my job to be paranoid." At 7 in the evening, Audrey's phone rang. It was Graham. "Audrey, sorry for the delay. Tyler had so much fun that we lost track of time. We're on our way now." "Okay, where are you?" "Just leaving the mall. We'll be there in 20 minutes. When she hung up, Audrey felt relieved but still uneasy. "They're on their way." They lost track of time. "See, you were worrying over nothing. Worrying over." When Tyler arrived, he was beaming and loaded down with shopping bags. "Mom, Dad bought me a ton of stuff, look," he said, dumping the contents of the bags onto the table. There were clothes, toys, books, and even a handheld video game. "Graham, this is too much," said Audrey. "It's just a little treat. Tyler deserves it. But you don't have to go overboard like this." "Why not? I have 3 years of missed presents to make up for." Tyler was so excited that he could barely pay attention to the adults' conversation. He was trying on a new t-shirt and playing with a toy car. "Dad said next time we're going to the movies, and that maybe I can sleep over at his house." Audrey shot Graham a warning look. "Let's talk about that calmly, Tyler." After Graham left, Tyler couldn't stop talking about the day he'd spent with his father. Audrey listened patiently, but something was bothering her. Later, when Tyler was in the bath, she said to Richard, "He bought so many things for Tyler. That's a bad thing?" "It's not bad, but it's strange. The Graham I knew was careful with his money. He always complained whenever I bought something he considered unnecessary." "People change, Audrey." "Yes, but there's something else." Tyler said they didn't just go to the amusement park and the mall. They also went to Graham's place. "And?" "Tyler said it's a big apartment, nicely decorated, with expensive furniture, and that Graham showed him a room that would be his when he came to visit." Richard noticed Audrey's growing concern. "What do you think it means?" "I think Graham is moving too fast, and I think he's not being completely honest about his intentions." On Monday, Audrey decided to do some investigating on her own. During her shift at the hospital, she asked a friend who worked in human resources to look into some consulting firms in the city. What she found left her even more worried. "Find anything?" asked Richard when she got home. "Yes, and I didn't like what I found. The company where Graham said he works doesn't exist, at least not under the name he mentioned." "Are you sure?" "My friend checked every record. There's no consulting firm with that name in the city. Maybe he's working independently. Maybe. But then why lie about the company name?" "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to confront him. I need to know the truth before I let Tyler spend more time with him." On Tuesday, Audrey called Graham and scheduled another meeting. This time she was determined to get clear answers. "Graham, I need to ask you some questions, and I want honest answers." "Of course. Go ahead." "Where exactly do you work?" He hesitated for a moment. "Why do you ask?" "Because I want to know who I'm leaving my son with." "I work in business consulting, I already told you." "At what company?" It's complicated. I work as a freelancer for several companies. Graham, the company you mentioned doesn't exist, I checked." His face changed slightly. "You investigated me? I'm a mother. It's my job to investigate." "Audrey, you're being paranoid." "I'm being careful. Where did you get the money for an expensive apartment, a new car, and for buying all that stuff for Tyler?" Graham sighed deeply. "Fine. I don't exactly work in consulting. I work with investments." "What kind of investments?" "The financial market, stocks, cryptocurrency, that sort of thing." "And is that working out for you?" "Very well, that's why I can offer Tyler a better life. For both of you." Audrey studied him carefully. There was something in the way he avoided her gaze that made her suspicious. "Graham, you're not telling me the whole truth." "I am. The work may not be traditional, but it's honest." "Then you won't mind if I verify that?" "Verify how?" "I have a friend who works in finance. I can ask him to look into it." Graham was visibly uncomfortable. "Audrey, why all this distrust? Isn't it enough to see that I can take good care of Tyler?" Not when there are secrets involved. There are no secrets, just privacy. Everyone has a right to privacy. Not when it involves my son. The conversation ended on a tense note, with Graham promising to bring documents proving his financial situation on his next visit. When Audrey told Richard about the conversation, he was worried. "Do you think he's involved in something illegal?" "I don't know, but I know he's lying about something." "What are we going to do?" "We're going to investigate on our own." Discreetly. Richard had contacts in the business world who could help. He made a few calls and got surprising information. "Audrey, I spoke with a private investigator who sometimes works for my company. And Graham really does have money, but the source is questionable. He's involved with a group that promotes shady investment schemes." "Shady how?" "It's not exactly a crime, but it's right on the edge. They're schemes that promise impossible returns to people desperate for quick money. Like a pyramid scheme, something like that. He recruits people, they invest money, and he keeps a cut of the profits. The problem is, those people usually lose everything." Audrey felt her stomach churn. "And do you think he wants to use Tyler to seem more trustworthy?" "It's possible. Family men come across as more credible in that kind of business." "Oh my God, Richard. What if that's exactly what it is?" "Take it easy, we're not sure yet. It could just be coincidences." "I can't take that risk. I need to protect Tyler." On Friday, Graham called to arrange another meeting with Tyler. Audrey decided to be direct. "Graham, until you fully clarify your professional situation, I'd prefer the visits to be suspended." "What do you mean suspended?" "Audrey, you can't stop me from seeing my son." "Yes, I can, especially if I think he might be at risk." "What risk? I'm offering him a better life." "A life based on what? In shady schemes?" There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Who told you that? Does it matter? Is it true or not?" "Audrey, you don't understand how the business world works. I understand enough to know when something isn't right. Look, I'll be straight with you. Yes, I work with investments some people consider risky, but it's all legal." "Legal doesn't mean ethical, Graham." "And what difference does that make? The money is real. I can give Tyler everything he deserves." "Tyler doesn't need everything. He needs honesty and stability. And you think you're giving him that? Living in a stranger's house, depending on a rich man's charity." The accusation stung more than Audrey expected. "Richard isn't a stranger, and it's not charity. I work for him." "Of course it's charity, Audrey. Do you really think he needs a private nurse? He feels sorry for you too." "That's not true." "It is true. And the worst part is you're deluding yourself into thinking he genuinely cares about you." "Stop it, Graham. Tyler deserves a real father, not a temporary replacement who could disappear from his life at any moment." Audrey hung up the phone, trembling with anger and hurt. Graham's words had touched her own insecurities about the situation with Richard. When Richard got home and saw Audrey crying in the kitchen, he knew immediately that something had happened. "What's wrong? Did you talk to Graham?" "I did, and he said some things that made me think." "What kind of things?" "About our situation here, about you feeling sorry for us." Richard sat down beside her. "Audrey, look at me. Do you really believe I feel sorry for you?" "I don't know what to believe anymore. Maybe Graham is right. Maybe you're being too kind, and I'm taking advantage of that." "That's ridiculous." "Is it? Think about it, Richard. Do you really need a nurse at home? Or are you just feeling lonely and we're convenient company?" The question caught Richard off guard. He took a moment to answer. "At first, maybe there was a little of that. But now you two are so much more than that to me." "What are we then?" You're the family I always wanted to have. But we're not your real family, Richard. And one day you'll realize that." "Why are you saying these things?" "Because I need to be realistic. Tyler is getting attached to you as if you were his father. And what if you decide you're tired of having us around? What if you meet someone and want to get married? What happens to Tyler?" Richard realized Audrey wasn't just questioning their situation. She was also protecting herself emotionally. "Audrey, I'm not going to abandon you two. You can't promise that. No one can. Yes, I can, because I love you both. The words came out before Richard could think them through. The silence that followed was deafening. Richard, I know it sounds crazy. I know we haven't known each other long, but it's true. I love you both. I love Tyler as if he were my own son, and I love you. Don't say that. Why not? Because it complicates everything. Or it simplifies it. Audrey got up from her chair. I need to think. I need some time to process all of this. Of course. Take all the time you need. That night, Audrey barely slept. Everything was happening too fast. Graham had come back demanding his place as Tyler's father, but with questionable intentions. Richard had declared his love for her and Tyler, but she was afraid to believe it could last. On Saturday morning, she made a decision. Richard, I need to take Tyler out today. We're going to spend the day out. Of course. Where are you going? To visit Mrs. Hattie. Tyler misses her, and I need to talk to someone I trust. Mrs. Hattie welcomed Audrey and Tyler with joy. She was a 70-year-old widow who had cared for Tyler as if he were her own grandson. My dear, you seem different, Mrs. Hattie remarked when Tyler went outside to play in the yard. Different how? Prettier, more rested. This new life is doing you good. It's complicated, Mrs. Hattie. Complicated how? Audrey told her everything, Graham's return, the discoveries about his shady business dealings, Richard's declaration of love, her own confusion. And now, I don't know what to do. Tyler has the right to spend time with his father, but I don't trust Graham. And Richard, well, I'm afraid I'm fooling myself. Mrs. Hattie listened in silence, then poured a cup of coffee and sat down across from Audrey. My dear, let me tell you something I've learned in 70 years of life. It's not what people say that matters, it's what they do. What do you mean? Graham talks a good game about being a better father, but where was he when Tyler needed him? Richard doesn't say as much, but what did he do? He took care of you when you needed it most. But what if Richard gets tired of us? And what if he doesn't? What if you miss your chance at happiness because you're afraid of getting hurt? It's just that I've already suffered so much, Mrs. Hattie. When Graham left, I thought my world had ended. I don't want to go through that again. Suffering is part of life, dear. But so is happiness. And you deserve to be happy. And what about Tyler? He has the right to know his father. He does, but on your terms. You're the mother. You decide what's best for him. When they got home late in the afternoon, Audrey had made a few decisions. She found Richard in the living room reading a book. How was your day? He asked. Enlightening. We need to talk. Of course. First about Graham. I'm not going to stop him from seeing Tyler, but I'm going to set clear rules. Only supervised visits until he proves he's truly changed. Sounds reasonable. And about us? About what you said yesterday? Richard waited, tense. I have feelings for you too, Richard. But I'm scared. Scared of what? Scared of giving in, and then finding out it was just gratitude on my part, or loneliness on yours. And how do we find out if it's real? By giving it time. By continuing as we are, but knowing there's a possibility between us. I can live with that. And there's something I need to make clear. Tyler will always be my priority. Any decision I make will have to take into account what's best for him. I wouldn't expect anything less from you, and I hope you know that Tyler is a priority for me now too. That night, while Tyler was sleeping, Audrey and Richard talked about the future. There were many uncertainties, but also a lot of potential for happiness. On Monday, Graham called again. Bea, we need to sort this out. I want to see my son. You can see him, but with conditions. What conditions? First, no extravagant gifts. Second, no promises you can't keep. Third, the visits will be here at home at scheduled times. You can't treat me like a dangerous stranger. I'm not. I'm being careful with my son. And fourth? Fourth, I want full transparency about your professional situation. Documents, proof, everything. That's an invasion of privacy. It's a guarantee of safety for Tyler. Graham reluctantly agreed. At the next visit, he brought a folder with documents. Richard, who had reviewed the papers beforehand through his contacts, confirmed Audrey's suspicions. "They're legal documents, but the business is ethically questionable," Richard commented after Graham left. "What do we do?" "We let him spend time with Tyler, but always supervised, and we stay alert for any sign that he's trying to use Tyler for his business." In the following months, a routine was established. Graham visited Tyler once a week, always under supervision. The visits were cordial but tense. Tyler liked seeing his dad, but he also noticed the tension between the adults. Audrey and Richard were developing their relationship slowly. Small gestures, deep conversations, moments of affection that grew naturally. Tyler, who had always been perceptive, started making comments. "Uncle Richard, do you like my mom?" "I like her very much. Why?" "Because you two keep looking at each other in a funny way." "Funny how?" "Like how my friend Lily's parents look at each other, and they're married." Richard and Audrey looked at each other and smiled. "And what do you think about that?" asked Audrey. "I think it's cool. You guys are happy when you're together." 6 months after Graham came back, he made an unexpected proposal. "Audrey, I want to take Tyler to meet my parents. They want to meet their grandson." "Your parents? Where do they live?" "Upstate New York. It's just a weekend." "Absolutely not." "Why not?" "They're Tyler's grandparents." "Graham, I barely trust you here in the city, let alone far away." "You're being unfair." "I'm being a mother." The argument escalated quickly. Graham accused Audrey of alienating Tyler from him, and she accused Graham of trying to manipulate the situation. "You know what, Audrey? I'm going to pursue my legal rights." "Go ahead, but be prepared for your whole life to be investigated in the process." After Graham left, visibly upset, Audrey felt shaken. "Can he really get legal rights over Tyler?" she asked Richard. "He can try, but considering he abandoned you two for 3 years, it'll be hard for him, especially if we can prove he's not financially reliable." "I don't want Tyler to go through a traumatic legal process. Maybe it won't come to that. Maybe Graham is just trying to scare you." 2 days later, Graham called again. This time his tone was different. "Audrey, can we talk? In person?" "About what?" "About Tyler's future. About everything." They met at a neutral coffee shop. Graham seemed more mature, less aggressive. "Audrey, I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation." "And?" "And I realized maybe you're right. Maybe I'm trying to force a situation that can't be forced." "What are you trying to say?" "That maybe Tyler is better off where he is, with you, with Richard." Audrey was surprised by the change in tone. "Why are you saying this?" "Because I saw how he talks about Richard. I saw how the 3 of you form a family. And I realized that maybe my role isn't to be the father who lives with him, but the father who's there when he needs me." Graham. "I'm not giving up on Tyler, Audrey. I'm just being realistic. I lost my chance to be his primary father, but I can try to be a good secondary one." "And your business? Are you going to keep at it?" "I'm thinking about making a change. Maybe finding something more stable, more honest. If I want to be an example for Tyler, I need to start there." The conversation ended on a more positive note than Audrey expected. Graham agreed to reduce the frequency of his visits and give Tyler more space to get used to the new family dynamic. That night, Audrey told Richard everything. "Do you believe him?" asked Richard. "I want to believe him. For Tyler." "And for yourself?" "And for myself, too. It would be so much easier if we didn't have to deal with all this drama." "Audrey, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "If Graham really changed, if he proved he was reliable, would you consider trying again with him?" The question caught Audrey off guard. She took a moment to answer. "No, not because he's a bad person, but because I don't feel anything more for him beyond respect as Tyler's father." "And what do you feel for me?" "For you?" She smiled. "For you, I feel something very different. I feel like I can be myself. I feel like I can trust. I feel like we can build something real together." "Is that what you want?" "To build something with me? It is. But I want to do it the right way. I want Tyler to understand what's happening. I want him to feel secure with the changes. Let's go at his pace then." A few weeks later, Tyler asked a direct question. "Mom, are you and Uncle Richard going to get married?" Audrey almost choked on her coffee. Why do you ask that, sweetheart? Because you kissed yesterday when you thought I was asleep. Richard and Audrey looked at each other, blushing. You saw that? Asked Richard. I did, and I thought it was cool. You two are happy together. And how would you feel if we decided to get married? Asked Audrey carefully. Happy. Then you'd be my mom, Uncle Richard would be my dad, and I'd have 2 dads. 3 counting my real dad. The simplicity of Tyler's answer charmed both adults. That's not exactly how it works, Tyler, explained Audrey. Richard would be your stepfather, not your dad. You already have a dad. That's fine. Can I have a dad and a stepdad? Of course you can, replied Richard, if that's what you want. It's what I want, and I also want you two to be happy. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, Richard and Audrey had a serious conversation about the future. Do you really want to marry me? Asked Audrey. I do. I want to wake up every day with you two. I want to officially be part of this family. And what if Tyler changes his mind? What if he gives us trouble as a teenager? Then we'll handle it together like a real family does. And what if Graham causes problems? We'll deal with them together too. And what if I completely lose my mind and decide I want more kids? Richard smiled. Then we'll have more kids. You've really thought of everything, haven't you? I thought about what matters. I love you two, and I want to build a life with you. The official marriage proposal happened 2 months later, during a family dinner. Richard had prepared everything carefully. Tyler's favorite food, flowers for Audrey, and a welcoming atmosphere. Tyler, Audrey, you know I love you both very much, began Richard. I love you too, said Tyler immediately. And I do too, added Audrey, smiling. So, Tyler, can I ask your mother to marry me? Yes, answered Tyler, clapping his hands. Richard knelt before Audrey and took a small box from his pocket. Audrey, will you marry me? Will you officially form a family with me and Tyler? Audrey looked at the ring, then at Richard, then at Tyler, who was beaming. Yes, she answered, tears in her eyes. I really do. The wedding was set for 6 months later. It would be a simple ceremony, with close family and friends. Tyler would be the ring bearer, and Mrs. Hattie would be Audrey's matron of honor. During the preparations, Graham surprised everyone by asking to speak with Richard alone. Richard, I know we're not exactly friends, but I need to tell you something. Go ahead. Thank you for taking care of Tyler and Audrey. You two deserve to be happy. Graham, no, let me finish. I made a lot of mistakes. I abandoned my family when they needed me most. And you did what I should have done. You took care of them. Tyler is still your son, that won't change. I know, and I hope to keep being part of his life. But now I know he's in good hands. He always will be. You can be sure of that. And Richard? If one day Tyler wants to know about his father's family, about his grandparents, can you bring him to meet them? Of course. Tyler has the right to know his whole family. Thank you, truly. On the day of the wedding, everything was perfect. Tyler was handsome in his little suit, beaming as the center of attention. Audrey was beautiful in a simple yet elegant dress. Richard couldn't stop smiling. During the ceremony, when they asked if anyone objected to the union, Tyler raised his hand. I object, he said, causing a moment of tension. Tyler? Whispered Audrey, worried. I object to them not getting married right now. I'm starving for dinner. The whole audience laughed, and the tension dissolved immediately. When the judge declared them husband and wife, Tyler ran to hug them both. Now we're a real family, he shouted. The party was simple but joyful. Mrs. Hattie cried with emotion seeing Audrey so happy. Graham showed up to congratulate the couple and bring a gift for Tyler. Congratulations, he said to Audrey. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Thank you, Graham, and thank you for understanding. Tyler, Graham called, can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, Dad. I want you to know that even with everything that's changing, you'll always be my son, and I'll always be here whenever you need me. I know, Dad, and you'll always be my father. Now I just have one more person who loves me. Exactly. You're lucky to have so many people who love you. I really am. During the honeymoon, a weekend at an inn by the beach with Tyler along, the 3 of them talked about the future. Now what? Asked Audrey. What do we do? Now we live our life. answered Richard. "A normal life as a family. Can I keep working at the hospital?" "Of course, if that's what makes you happy." "And can I keep seeing my dad?" asked Tyler. "Whenever you want," Audrey and Richard answered in unison. "And can we get a dog?" Audrey and Richard exchanged glances. "We'll think about it," said Audrey, laughing. "That's almost a yes," celebrated Tyler. 2 years later, Audrey was pregnant with their second child. Tyler was thrilled at the idea of being a big brother. Graham had truly changed, found a stable job, and visited Tyler regularly, always respecting the new family dynamic. "Mum, what will the baby call me?" asked Tyler. "Brother Silly." "But if I'm Dad Graham's son and he's Dad Richard's son, are we really brothers?" "Of course you are. Family isn't just blood, Tyler. It's love." "Then we're all family. Me, you, Dad Richard, the baby, Dad Graham, and even Mrs. Hattie." "Exactly. And Buster, too," added Tyler, referring to the dog they had adopted 6 months earlier. "And Buster, too," agreed Audrey, laughing. That night, while Tyler was sleeping, Audrey and Richard talked on the balcony. "Do you regret anything?" asked Audrey. "Just one thing." "What?" "Not having met you sooner." "Nonsense. We met at the right time. If it had been sooner, maybe we wouldn't have been ready for each other." "That's true. I needed all that loneliness to appreciate what I have now. And I needed all that struggle to learn that I can accept help without losing my independence. And Tyler needed all that chaos to have a big, loving family. A family that's anything but conventional, but it's ours. The best family in the world." They stayed silent for a moment, watching the stars. "Richard?" "Yes?" "I love you." "I love you too. And thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For whispering that you wanted to sleep through the night. If you hadn't said that, maybe I never would have realized how much I needed you in my life. Then all the exhaustion was worth it. Worth every second." The next morning, Tyler woke them up early. "Dad Richard, Mom, wake up. Buster brought a kitten into the backyard." "A kitten?" asked Audrey, still sleepy. "It must be lost. Can we keep it? Please?" Richard and Audrey exchanged glances and smiled. "We'll see," said Richard. "Size, but first let's have breakfast." "What a big family," murmured Audrey, stroking her belly. "The bigger, the better," replied Richard, kissing her forehead. And so, the family that began with a whisper of exhaustion in a hospital became a story of love, understanding, and second chances. Gabriel grew up surrounded by love, learning that family is so much more than blood ties. Audrey found not just a companion, but a true partner for life. And Richard discovered that true wealth wasn't in his bank account, but in the morning smiles of his son, in his wife's embraces, and in the feeling of belonging to something greater than himself. Graham continued to be a constant presence in Tyler's life, always respecting the new family dynamic. Over time, he also found someone special and started his own family, but he never forgot the lessons he learned about responsibility and true love. The nurse who once murmured that she just wanted to sleep through the night now slept peacefully every night, knowing she had found her place in the world. And the lonely businessman who pretended to be asleep that night at the hospital had discovered that the best investment he ever made wasn't in coffee or stocks, but in love and family. Years later, when Tyler was already a teenager and his little sister Anna Lily ran through the house chasing the dog and the cat, Audrey sometimes remembered that night at the hospital, how a single sentence whispered in exhaustion had changed the course of their lives forever. "What are you thinking about?" Richard would ask, always attentive. "About how funny life is, how the most unlikely moments can be the most important ones. Are you talking about that night at the hospital?" "I am. If I had known you were listening, I probably would have been embarrassed and wouldn't have said anything. And if I hadn't overheard, I probably would have been discharged and we never would have met." Then the embarrassment was worth it. Every word was worth it. "Richard?" "Yes?" "Now I sleep through the night, every night, and I wake up happy every day. And that's how it should be. Forever." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of the story. Do you believe Audrey made the right decision in giving love a chance with Richard? And Graham, do you think he really changed, or was it just convenient? Leave your opinion in the comments with sincere words. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other emotional stories that touch the heart. Your participation is essential to us,